Hey.
Alright, y'all, so I just got done watching the Memphis-Minnesota game from a few nights ago, and boy was that shit depressing. Now, it's no secret, the Memphis Grizzlies have probably been the biggest disappointment so far in the NBA this season. They're currently 3-13, they are 29th in offensive rating, 17th in defensive rating, and this is all with having, at least according to Basketball Reference, the 28th strongest schedule so far, so they haven't even had that tough of a schedule and they're just getting destroyed. They also remain the only team to be winless at home to this point in the season, which, I mean, even the Spurs, Pistons, and Wizards all at least have one win at home this year, which is just not a good look, especially for a team that literally just a season ago was second in the West and one of the best teams at home. So just a complete flip-flop in that section too. But I will say the whole reason behind me making this video is this tweet here that was dropped on the Dunk Central, NBA Central, whatever, the aggregator account, whatever you want to call it. And it's because they tried to paint the picture of the Memphis Grizzlies season in one tweet, and it really felt like they're trying to throw all of the blame on Jaren Jackson Jr. And normally I don't let a single tweet all by itself bother me, but deep down I just know that there are so many people who will see this tweet, see these stats, and just without looking at any other stats about the Memphis Grizzlies or watching any seconds of their games, those people will take this and run with it and carry the water and say that Jaren Jackson Jr. is washed, he's fallen off, and that is just not the case at all. Now, what this tweet does tell me is that Jaren Jackson Jr. is in an elite shooting slump right now. Obviously, 30% from the field, 23% from 3 are not good numbers. They're not even average numbers. They're not even okay numbers. They're just flat out terrible. But to try to paint his blocks per game and rebounds per game as some bad numbers is just misleading. Especially the rebounds, because the numbers are there. If you go back to the start of the 2022 season, so 2 full seasons and then these 16 games that he's played this season, Jaren Jackson Jr. across that span of time has averaged a little over 6 rebounds per game, 6.2 to be exact. So he's just 1 rebound less than the past 2 seasons in these past 7 games. And again, it's a minor thing, but I hate that they're trying to paint this as some Jaren Jackson Jr. fell off tweet. Plus, I thought we all knew by this point that he is just incredibly inconsistent and streaky when it comes to offense in the NBA. He's never averaged more than 20 points for an entire season. Yes, there will be nights where he'll get you 30, but there will also be plenty of nights where he scores in the single digits and just misses a bunch of shots. And that's okay when you have guys like Ja Morant and Desmond Bane and other, solid scorers on your roster. But in times like this, where this roster is depleted with injuries and suspensions, it just gets brought out to the spotlight. And I don't know, I just feel like people are expecting too much from Jaren Jackson Jr. offensively right now. Now, on the contrary, one thing about Jaren Jackson Jr. that will always be consistent, probably until he retires, is his defense. And, that's one of those things where you really have to watch actual basketball games to understand just how good someone is defensively. And even though I personally haven't watched a ton of Grizzlies basketball this season because, again, they've been really depressing, in the few games I have watched, it is still very easy to tell that Jaren Jackson Jr. is a DPOY level guy. I mean, he literally won the award just a few months ago. In fact, I'd go as far to say that he is probably the sole reason why the Grizzlies aren't a bottom third team in the league in terms of defensive rating right now. They're hovering at 17. If you take Jaren Jackson Jr. off the squad, they're probably 25th or worse. Because he really does do it all for this team on that end of the court. He protects the paint. He's able to guard in isolation, even against smaller guards. I mean, the Timberwolves in this game were going at him a bunch in the first quarter. Anthony Edwards quickly learned his lesson after a couple possessions. I think Karl-Anthony Towns tried him a few times and just got absolutely nowhere except for 1 bucket. He can also just meet guys at the rim. He'll strip you on the drive. They're just, he's a great rotational help defender. He really does it all for this Grizzlies team. But the current issue and why this defense is still overall bad is because teams realize that, if we just drag Jaren Jackson Jr. out of the paint and make him guard a shooter on the perimeter, get a switch, then there is literally nobody else left to defend the rim, and the paint is about as secure as... I'm trying to come up with something that's not secure, but I can't think. The New York subway turnstiles. That's what I'm gonna go with. So yeah, Jaren Jackson Jr. He didn't trick us. He is still, again, a defensive player of the year candidate. He probably won't come close to winning it this year. Maybe he'll be a finalist, especially if this season keeps up the way it has been. But at this point, if you're going to say that Jaren Jackson Jr. is a bad player or a bad defender, then you are just simply wrong. I'll accept that he is a streaky offensive player because, God, did he miss a lot of easy shots in this one. He always seems to be missing easy shots every now and then, but then he'll also just, like, he'll have a sequence of plays where one possession he'll miss an easy layup out of the post, and then the next play down he'll hit like a movement three, and you're just like, okay, I guess so. But overall, as terrible as this season has been for the Memphis Grizzlies, there are just so many other better reasons for why they're 3-13 that if you try to put the blame on Jaren Jackson Jr., your brain needs to be studied. Anyway, outside of that, other players on this team who caught my eye, Desmond Bane, it's been a frustrating season, I bet, for him, but it's been fun to watch, at least me personally, my point of view. He's currently averaging a career high in points per game and assists per game. The efficiency is way down, but that is about what I would expect considering he is pretty much the sole source of offense on this team for most nights. You know, you'll get the occasional Trey J night. I think Santi Aldama had like a 30-point game a couple nights ago. Maybe Derrick Rose will get you some buckets. Maybe, you know, Roddy might get you some buckets, but for the most part, it's Desmond Bane or bust for this Memphis offense. Speaking of Santi Aldama, I've been super excited to see him get an expanded role if I can find somewhat of a silver lining in this season from hell. He's averaging over 14 points a game. He's taking the third most field goal attempts per game on this team, and he's been starting the past couple of games. Defense is still, you know, jury's out on that part, but watching him play offense has always been a joy of mine. He's just such a unique player with his build and dribbling skills and ability to just score at some awkward angles sometimes. So again, despite all of the terrible storylines currently surrounding this team, I have been a huge enjoyer of the Santi Aldama starting experience. In addition to that, David Roddy and Zaire Williams continue to impress me. Both guys are 22 years old, and I would like to see them start to get more minutes, especially if this season continues to be an absolute dumpster fire. You know, those are your two young talents right now currently. I think those are the two youngest guys in the rotation pretty much for the most part. And at this point, they've both shown flashes of being solid rotational players. I would personally like to see if you can get anything more out of them. If maybe they could end up being a solid starter, even be like a secondary, tertiary star player, star scorer to Ja and Desmond Bane. But to wrap this video up, let's look big picture again at this Memphis season, because I think I might have been, I don't want to say I was in the minority, but I had them at 6th place in the Western Conference in my predictions in the preseason, and it felt like I was lower on them than the majority of NBA fans. Obviously, my opinion has changed slightly at this point. I still think they could reach 6th, but it's going to be an absolute grind, and Ja is going to have to come out blazing from his suspension. But at the same time, I feel like there is a part of me that should have seen this coming. Because let's just take a look at last season's leaders for Memphis in field goals attempted. Obviously, you have Ja and Desmond Bane at the top. You have Dylan Brooks in 3rd, Tyus Jones in 5th, Luke Kennard obviously got traded midseason, but he was 6th. You have Steven Adams and Brandon Clark at 8th and 9th, and those are all guys who are no longer with this team or out for a either for the season or for a unspecified amount of time. And Memphis has always been a team in recent years where we would say, wow, their depth is crazy. You know, they lose John Morant for a bunch of games and they still go on this huge winning streak and win a bunch of games. Or, you know, Jaren Jackson Jr. missed a bunch of last season and they were still good, even though their defense was kind of ass, and it was great once he came back. Either way, I think people were confident in the Grizzlies this season because the past couple seasons, their depth has always been so good at replacing starters. But at a certain point, when you lose so much talent, you're just going to be kind of helpless in today's NBA. Me, along with a bunch of other people, at least I know me for sure, just did not take into account the sheer amount of talent that this team lost. Again, like, hate on Dillon Brooks all you want, but he is a great, solid starter level player. Tyus Jones was a huge reason for why Memphis's bench was always so good, because he would just come in and play really solid basketball. Steven Adams and Brandon Clark were their entire paint presence outside of Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, they're running Bismack Biyombo is getting like 30 minutes a night right now, and no hate on Bismack Biyombo, but if he is starting and giving you 30 minutes a night, what does that say about your team? I think the most frustrating part about this Grizzlies team is there's no real hope for them to turn this around until they just get players back on the roster. So Jaw's back at game 25 or 26, whichever one it is. I assume Brandon Clark will be back at some point this season. Maybe he doesn't, maybe, I don't know. But Dillon Brooks isn't coming back, Tyus Jones isn't coming back, Steven Adams is out for the entire season, and I'm starting to seriously have worries about the Grizzlies. Obviously, no duh, they're 3-13, but if they don't step up at some point soon, they might not even make the play-in game. They might be that 11th team on the bubble that misses everything and just has a really bad year. That's all I got for this one. As always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all those good things, and I'll see you on the next one.